This is Geometry Lesson 8-2, Finding Angle Measures, specifically with trigonometry. There we go. It's a little bit late. So let me first start by doing some basic vocab, some analysis. If I have some sort of trigonometric angle, like cosine, and I have something on the inside of that, like of theta, and it's equal to a number like, I don't know, 3/5, I just want to remind us that this thing inside of the parentheses, technically it's called the argument, but it's the angle that we're looking at, the angle of reference. And then these lengths 3 and 5 are lengths on the triangle, just to make sure that we're all okay with that notation. So next I want to teach you how to undo trig. So we'll say undoing trig. So what if I want to untrap this angle? I want to get rid of cosine. And a lot of students mistakenly believe you just divide by cosine because this looks like cosine times theta, and that's incorrect. So don't do this. This is bad. Don't do cosine of theta is equal to, I don't know, maybe I have, we'll just say 3/5 again. You do not just divide by cosine theta, divide by cosine theta. It's one of the most common mistakes that I see students making. This doesn't work. You can't even just divide by cosine. So you can't divide by cosine, divide by cosine. You would think, oh, those cancel out. No, that doesn't work. The only thing that you can do is take the anti-cosine or the arc cosine. So this is the good. Do I have enough room over here? I'll just do underneath. This is good. Good is if I had cosine of theta is equal to 3/5. I gave a little bit of room because I want to do the arc cosine of cosine. So if I do, and I'm realizing I need a lot of room here, so I'm going to move you over here. The only way to undo cosine is with this other function that is known as the anti-cosine or the arc cosine. If I take the arc cosine of the left side, then I also have to take the arc, and I still ran out of room, move you over, arc cosine of the right side as well. Arc cosine and cosine are the only thing that cancel each other out, and when you have them next to each other, you cross that one off, you cross that one off, and then you get theta by itself, which was the entire goal. How do you undo cosine? By taking arc cosine. So this is going to be equal to arc cosine of 3/5. And that is a number that can be seen in the calculator. Like if I come over here to my calculator, you can literally type in, here, let me clear all of this stuff. I can literally type in arc cosine of 3/5. You can say, okay, they use this symbol, which I don't like. So I'll write that in the notes as well. If you're using the calculator, sometimes arc cosine is the same thing as cosine to the -1 to undo cosine, and the same thing, arc sine is the same thing as sine to the -1, and arc tan is the same thing as tan to the -1. These all mean the exact same things, but I don't like this notation for a lot of reasons that I can get into later. But check this out. If I literally use my keyboard to just type in arc cosine, notice that as soon as you type in that S, it changes from the italics into just the normal non-italics. And I can type in arc cosine of, and then you can start your parentheses, 3/5. And it tells you, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about that sort of angle. The angle is 53 because it untraps the angle. And by the way, if you had instead typed in the function cosine like this of 3/5, it's the same exact angle. They mean the same thing. So I prefer typing arc cosine. If you prefer typing cosine to the -1 just as the button on here, that is also completely fine. The main thing to know is we're done. That's the answer. So how is this useful in solving problems? Let me give you an example. So example number 1. What if I gave you a triangle, and I should make it look kind of, it's not going to be Anatoly level. I know I feel it. What if I have a triangle here, and it's a right angled triangle. And I told you, hey, I don't know what this angle, I'm going to call this angle star. It's not a Greek letter. I can call this alpha. I don't know what this angle alpha is, but hey, you know what I do know? I know that the length of this piece of wood over here is 8, and I know the length of this piece of wood over here is 11. So what is this angle? That's the question. How do I find that angle? And here's how you set it up. You say, okay, well, I have 3 tools available to me, and then you sound them out. You say, my 3 tools are SOHCAHTOA. You say, okay, I don't know which of these letters I have available to me, so let me go ahead and label my diagram over here. What is opposite of my angle? And opposite is my 8, so I'm going to say that this is my opposite, or I'm just going to label it O for opposite. And that means that the hypotenuse is over here because that is kind of the opposite of the 90-degree angle, and by process of elimination, the 11 has to be the adjacent. Notice what we're missing. We are missing H. So I'm going to go ahead and give a giant cross through H. Can't do H, can't do H, which means the only thing I have all the information on is this T function, the tangent function. So I'm going to start by setting up a normal tangent function, and then I'm planning on undoing the tangent function like I showed you up here with the cosine function. So start by setting up a tangent function. I am going to say tangent of my angle. You always say tangent of your angle. My angle in this case is alpha. And that's going to be equal to the side lengths. And it's always going to be O and then A. So it's going to be 8 and then 11. 8 over 11 is this fraction. 8 over 11. And then I need to untrap this alpha. I need to undo tangent. The only thing that undoes tangent, as I've said before, is taking the arc tangent. You can't divide by tangent. That doesn't get rid of it. There's no such thing as divided by tangent of nothing. It's always tangent of something. So I'm going to go ahead and give myself some room here. I'm going to say this 8/11 is going to move over here, so I can now say I'm going to take arc tangent of the left side, and whatever I do to the left side, I also do to the right side. And I have arc tangent of the right side. And what happens now is arctangent and tangent cancel each other out, and I have just my angle, which is what I want to solve for, and that is going to be arctangent, I'll write it again, arctangent of 8/11. And what is that? And I'm going to use my calculator now and say arctangent of 8/11. And I'm going to type in here, I prefer typing in arctangent of, in parentheses, 8/11. And I get 36.027. We'll just round. Well, what does your homework do? Your homework to the nearest whole number, nearest degree. So if I'm rounding this to the nearest number, this is just going to be 36 degrees. So I come back over here and say this was about 36 degrees. And I get my final answer. So you have to be careful about what information you have and what information you don't have. Let me give you one more example that you can have in your notes forever. So let me give you example 2, and then if you stick around, I'll try to give you a free homework question as well. Let me extend this line down. So example number 2. I'm going to give you a right triangle again, right triangle, not to scale. And I'm going to give you just some random lengths. Maybe this is 23. And I'm going to say that this length over here is feeling like an 18. Sure. And this time I'm trying to figure out this angle up here, which I'm going to call theta. All right, so I need to figure out what is this angle right here. How do I do that? I start with SOHCAHTOA. You always start these problems with SOHCAHTOA. It's the one formula you have to memorize for the first 4 lessons. So SOHCAHTOA. By the way, when you start your quiz or your test for this unit, every single time you should start by writing this somewhere on your paper so that you can have it as a handy reference. Okay, now that I have this set up, I should also label where my opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse are over here. Opposite of the 90-degree angle is going to be my hypotenuse, so I have an H. And then opposite of the angle that I'm talking about is going to be my opposite, so it's my O. And then process of elimination, my A is over here. So what information do I not have? I do not have an O. So no O, no O. The only information that I do have is my adjacent and hypotenuse, so I'm forced to use cosine. So let's set up my cosine function. I'll say cosine of my angle, and this angle is named theta, and that's going to be equal to, I'll give myself some room because I'm going to take an arc cosine eventually. I'll give myself some room and say it's going to be this fraction of a divided by h, or 18 divided by 23. I'll say 18 over 23. And now I need to get theta by itself. I have this handy formula set up to get theta by itself. I need to undo cosine. To undo cosine, you take the arc cosine of both sides. So I'm going to say arc cosine of cosine, and whatever I do to the left, I do to the right. So arc cosine of this fraction, 18/23, and these cancel out, leaving me with just theta. Theta is equal to arc cosine of 18/23, and that is roughly equal to what? Calculator, come save us, please. So we're doing now arc cosine. I can, instead of having to type it over again, I'm just going to come up to our previous answer and delete this inside and say 18 divided by 23, and I get 38. Oh, that's so close to 0.5, but that's a 4, so I'm going to round down to 38. This is just going to be 38 degrees. So that's about 38 degrees for my final answer. Cool, so that concludes the notes, and I'll have these ready for you guys. I want to show you guys some free homework problems so that you can get started nice and easy. I'm going to do numbers 1 and maybe number 2. See how I'm feeling. It's getting kind of late. Let's do number 1. So the first thing I'm going to do at the top of this homework, and you should do this as well, put your name, but you should also write SOHCAHTOA. You need to have this memorized for this entire unit and for the rest of your algebra or mathematical career. All right, now that I have it labeled, let's go ahead and label the sides of this triangle with O, A, and H. So opposite of the angle that I'm talking about is going to be my opposite angle. So I have an O over here. My hypotenuse is opposite of the 90-degree angle, so my hypotenuse is right here. And by process of elimination, my adjacent is the leg that is adjacent to this angle, which is why we call it the adjacent. All right, what information do we not have? In this case, I'm going to do this in laser pens or laser pointers, so it disappears and then comes back. We don't have an H, we don't have an H, we don't have an H, which means we can't use any of these. We have to use tangent. So I'm going to say tangent of my angle, of my question mark in this case, is going to be equal to my trig ratio. My trig ratio, tangent tells me I do O divided by A. 12 divided by 24. So I'm going to say is equal to 12 over 24. So I have it set up. By the way, you can reduce these. You're like, this is just a fraction. Go ahead and reduce right now if you want to. It doesn't matter to me. You could divide by 12 and divide by 12, and you get this new function that says tangent of question mark is equal to, I'll give some room because I'm going to take an arc tangent. This is going to be a half. You're allowed to do that. And finally, I need to get question mark. I need to find that angle. To find that angle, I'm going to undo tangent. The way that we undo tangent is with the arc tangent. Arc, I need some more room here. Arc tangent of tangent will cancel out the tangent, leave me with a question mark. But whatever I do to the left-hand side, I also have to do to the right-hand side, and this will also be arc tangent of the right-hand side, which means question mark is equal to arc tangent of a half, and arc tangent of a half is about what? Again, you just punch this in the calculator and you're done. Coming up here, and here you can use this, here let's clear all. You can use the arc tangent button if you want, and you can say 1 divided by 2, and I get 26.5, so that rounds up to 27 degrees. This is about 27 degrees for my final answer, which I will then box, and we'll see if I've got that one right. Number 1 is number 27. Number 1 is 27. We got it. Let's give you another freebie. Let's give you number 2. All right, so again, I'm going to label the sides of my triangle. So on the opposite side of my angle is going to be my opposite. On the opposite side of my 90-degree angle is going to be my hypotenuse, and my adjacent is the remaining. So notice in this one, I don't have an O. So in terms of my SOHCAHTOA up here, I'm going to cross off my O, cross off my O, cross off my O. Notice that when I cross off my O's, no sine, no tangent, I can only do cosine. So I have to use cosine. I'm forced to use cosine for number 2. I'm going to say that this is going to be cosine of my angle, which is question mark in this case, very creative, and that's going to be equal to this fraction. The fraction from SOHCAHTOA, if you've forgotten, cosine is always A over H. So A over H, or it's going to be 43 over 45. So I'm going to say 43 over 45. Cool. Well, I need to get this question mark unlocked. The only way to do that is to get rid of cosine, and the only way to get rid of cosine is to take the arc cosine. So I'm going to take the arc cosine of the left and arc cosine of the right. When I do that, arc cosine and cosine cancel each other out, leave me with the angle, and the angle is going to be equal to arc cosine of 43 45ths. Excellent. What is that? I don't know. We need a calculator for that. So come back up here, and we type in arc cosine of 43 45ths, 43 45ths, and I get 17 degrees, rounded to the nearest whole number. This is about 17 degrees. Final answer, box it, and let's check. 17 degrees, 17 degrees, we got it. So I gave you 2 freebies. That was the entire lesson for 8-2, finding angle measures for geometry. Thanks for watching. Good luck on the homework. I'll see you guys later.